My name is Devontae Russell. I'm from Queens, New York. My childhood without my father being around was, enjoyable as far as I know. You can't miss what you didn't have. But yeah, I had the pleasure of having two moms, my biological mom and then my great aunt. I was raised by my great aunt in Queens, New York, and my biological mom was in North Carolina. So there was a lot of estrogen in my life growing up. I felt like I was always like one of the girls, kind of, sort of. Even though everyone around me didn't want me to be one of the girls, I guess it was just a natural energy overflow. So yeah, I didn't really miss having a dad until there were certain conversations that would come up, or like maybe events at school, Father's Day, or just like people harping in on the fact that I was gay or acting gay. I think that's when I was like, damn, I don't have a father. So yeah.
Hi, my name is David, and I am from Pasadena, California. Childhood was okay. I was blessed with a really supportive mother who never left me and my brother. She was always there, and she raised us as a single mother, and I thank God for her. My father did not just up and leave. He was in and out of my life, actually. If I said or did something as a child or a teenager that he did not like, he would exit out of my life for like a few weeks, and then I would come crawling back to him because I needed my father in my life and say I'm sorry, and then he would be back in my life. So it was on and off for years.
What's up? I'm Rich Bum, originally from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Honestly, I had a great childhood, even though I grew up in a impoverished area, surrounded with a lot of drugs, gun violence. But overall, I felt like I had a healthy childhood. I rode bikes, hung out with my friends. Again, I think it was pretty much one of the best times, seriously, before technology took over everything. So I got to really be a kid, be a child. My father actually was not in my home, but my grandfather was my father figure, because pretty much him and my grandmother adopted myself and my sister. So technically I did have a father figure in the home, but not my biological father.
Hello. No, I'm just kidding. I'm Nicole Ray from the Inland Empire, Riverside, California to be exact. Don't get it twisted. It's about 55 minutes east of Los Angeles in the nice neighborhood. I had a great life out there. I guess if that's all you know, you don't really know anything else until you know something else. So being born there, being raised there, I had a good life. So all I remember is a good life, my dad was there until I was about 18. My mom finally decided that it was time to break down and leave him. She thugged it out as long as she could, and she skedaddled.
What's up? I'm Mike G. Riggins, a native of Washington, D.C. My father was always gone. I remember meeting him once when I was 12, and we went to the mall. He bought me a pair of shoes. It was Grant Hill's shoes at the time, 1996, I'll never forget. And he brought me back home, dropped me off, kissed me on my forehead, and that was the last time I seen him. So that was 1996, I was 12. So he was never around. It was just that one time that I ever seen him. I didn't hear much about my dad growing up. I would ask questions, but they didn't really have any answers. My uncle would always tell me, oh, I seen your dad on such and such avenue or such and such block around the DC area, but I didn't really, honestly, never really asked any deep, detailed questions as to why he wasn't there, because I was content without him being there.
growing up seeing kids with their dads, when I didn't have one, or when he decided not to be in my life for that particular moment in time, it was the worst feeling in the world. It was like a knife in my gut. And honestly, to this day, I still feel that. I know I'm in my 30s, but when I see young children with their fathers, you know, playing with them, or just spending time with them, it makes me very emotional. My father had his own issues with his father because his father was absent.
Growing up, seeing my friends with their dad, I don't know that I was heavily affected, because some of my relationships with men around the family weren't the greatest. Like, there were some outside opinions about how feminine I was, or the sound of my voice, or the activities I chose to do, like playing with Barbie's hair and stuff like that. So like, a lot of men made me really anxious because I felt like they were judging me for being not man enough, or a sissy, or fairy, or all that bullshit. So I don't think I felt a way necessarily. It wasn't until I got older and then I started to be like, well, I wonder, you know? Yeah, so.
In the beginning, it was a little rocky seeing my friends with their dad doing things, especially like at dances and stuff like that. But as I got a little older, my mom had met my stepfather, and he became that father figure. So he would take me to games, and take me to the mall, and take me to the movies, and take me to the music parks. So over time, I eventually had that father dynamic, but it was a little rough seeing them with their dad, and I didn't have my father, so I had to sit that one out. So that was a little tough.
So aside from my mom, I pretty much refrained from asking anyone any questions about my dad, just because I felt like she was the only one that kind of had any information about that. And I felt like the rest of my family was judging her for not fully knowing who my dad was. So I didn't want it to become like a bashing session, or like he said, she said. So if it wasn't my mom, I just left the conversation alone.
I mean, she didn't have to tell me anything. I lived there for 18 years of my life, honey. That man was a drug addict. He was abusive, verbally, not really physically, but verbally, you know, abusive. He was just, you know, non-existent really. He lived there, but he wasn't there. He was like emotionally, spiritually, physically, and his mind checked out.
Father's Day is a little different since my grandfather was in my life a little longer. So I had like a shift. I was in the household with my grandparents, but my grandmother passed when I was going from junior high to high school. It was just me and my grandfather for those 4 years. So I felt like I had him longer around. So when it came to like Father's Day, like it's still different for me. Like I don't so much celebrate Father's Day. I don't even call my grandfather and telling him Happy Father's Day, because it's, I don't know, I guess I still have weird feelings. And even though he is pretty much everything, the whole reason why I made it, I would say, well, made it out, I made it this far. I don't know, like it's different. It's different. So I don't have a negative feeling like the same towards Mother's Day, but it's like I don't actually care about it, as strange as it sounds.
I never got a reason why my father left, actually. I know my mom had me at 14, and she didn't seem to have enough information about him. She would say a name, or say he would be at like an event, like a graduation or something, but he never showed up, and then there was always like conflict when she brought him up, so I left that alone.
Growing up, I can ask questions to anybody about my father, grandmother, mother, cousins, uncles, aunts, anyone. Everyone knew him, so I can ask anyone. There was never a thing where I was scared to ask someone something. Anyone would answer if I asked.
Honestly, he and I didn't really have like a huge relationship. Like I knew he was there. He was my dad. I mean, he was cool for what he was cool for, but it was just never a connection. We didn't have anything in common. So it's kind of hard to connect with somebody if you guys don't have anything that binds you together. You know what I mean? Connections usually come from having things in common. He was into sports, I wasn't. He was into this kind of music, I was into this kind of music. He was into that, I was into that. Not to mention he was on drugs, so that kind of checked him out mentally a lot of times. But I mean, he was there. I knew he loved me at the time, and I knew, you know, he was there, but he just wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. And so we didn't have a connection.
I don't feel like my mom ever told me anything of value in regards to my father. Like nothing that I could even start a search party for. Like I think she said his name was like Robert White, And I was like, well, where the fuck did I get Russell from? Like, no, shit ain't adding up. But I didn't want to keep asking questions, especially not like that, because I was like 6, so, you know. But she didn't give me anything tangible in regards to my father, and I guess that's why I kind of didn't care either. It was like, I guess at 14, maybe you don't know who my dad is, and I don't really want to pressure you into that, so I kind of just let it be what it was.
My childhood was the normal childhood in DC. Single mother, food stamps, one income. But I had a great childhood though. Like, I wasn't deprived of anything. I didn't really notice or care that my father wasn't around. I mean, I still had my mom. She was taking care of me. I had my family. I had cousins. And I had the family dynamic, you know, before my stepfather came along.
Aside from my mom, I didn't ask anyone any questions about my father because I felt like everyone around was kind of judging my mom for not knowing who he was. So it was kind of like, that was the only place I felt safe having that conversation, just because like she would know better than anyone else. But on top of that, I kind of didn't want it to become like a family bashing session about my mom in regards to her not knowing who my dad is. So if it wasn't her, when I did ask, I just didn't ask the question.
Ironically, I go to his brother, my uncle. He's my best friend. Yes, my uncle, he's the best person to talk to because he is my father's brother and they share the same mother. So my uncle just gives me advice. Just, you know, I'm a grown man and he's kind of like, my uncle's only 4 years older than me. So he's like a big brother to me, the big brother I never had. So, and the fact that he's my father's brother, he knows all about my father, so he's just the best person to go to just for advice and to encourage me.
When I look at love in life, I've been shown that through so many different people that I met. I've been shown actually more love, I feel like, by more strangers. So I've been taught different ways of love, different ways of showing love. So been learning, I guess, a lot of different ways about love. So I don't think that I was like cut off for sure, just based on the fact that, you know, my parents weren't around, my biological parents weren't around. I still had great examples, you know.
I don't feel that him not being around plays a factor in my sexuality or me dating guys. I just think that was something that was in me from the beginning, because I can still be the same way if he's around. So I don't think it was a factor of him not being there that I am attracted to the same sex at all. Like, I don't know. I've never thought that.
I don't really have a specific type, so I guess I can't say that it plays a part in the people that I'm attracted to. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of things that happen with him play a part in certain things in my life, but it has nothing to do with dating aspects now.
Yeah, I always jokingly say I have daddy issues because I be dating a bunch of older men, but they look good. So good. So that's part of it. But I mean, yeah, I think I definitely have trust issues with men. I don't like any authoritative figure that's a man. I'm not used to men talking to me crazy or telling me what to do or just like coming into my life for a short period of time and asserting authority and then leaving. Like, I do not like stuff like that. So I realized that I tend to push men away just to keep myself safe and not worry about you like abandoning me at any point.
My father's absence in my life has caused me to be drawn to people that I normally would not be drawn to. I struggle with my sexuality, and I think me seeking attention and seeking validation from my father, I think that sort of morphed into seeking attention and validation from other men. So I think that played a really big role in that, in my dating life now. If my father called me today, believe it or not, I would talk to him. I would ask him why he abandoned me. It's that simple.
No, I would talk to him. And I've been having this thought. It's not so much, you know what, honestly, if he just wanted to be a part of my life and have the opportunity, I would allow him to. But for me, mostly, it's for family. it's because there's an entire section of family that I don't even know. I don't even know my grandmother. I could still have a living grandmother and a living grandfather, not even, well, I do have a living grandfather, also my grandfather's still around, but still have another set of grandparents, cousins, it's just a whole extension of family that I have no clue who they are. They don't know who I am. So it's more for that, to get to know my lineage.
Would I ever reach out to my dad? For why? I'm the kid. I did not have him, he had me.
If my father were to randomly call me today, would I talk to him or close him out? I may as well talk to him. There's a lot of time that's been lost. There's a lot of time that's been lost, and I feel like there's so much more to me that I want to know. Like, people compliment on the most surface level of things. People compliment certain traits, and I'm like, I don't even know if this is from my mom or my dad, to be honest. I'm grateful. People be like, what are you? I'm like, just black. Like, as far as I know, which is great, hey. But still, like, I want to know the ins and outs. I want to know if I have more siblings, or like where certain quirks come from, and all those things. So I would talk to him, but I would just be like, one, skeptical. Like, how did you get here? Why now? What do you want from me? But I can have the conversation of nothing else, for my own clarity, I guess.
I wish my dad could have been there for everything about me growing up. Like, he missed out on a great person. He missed out on a great spouse, or my mom, or whatever. So I wish he was there through it all. Like, everything. Like, elementary school, junior high school, even now currently, like the things that I'm doing and involved in. I just wish he was around to see it all. I mean, you never know who you're raising. That's why you should never give up on your children.
I take my father less now than then. Then I was just a scared little boy, a scared teenager who needed his father. Now I'm in my 30s, and I realize that he will never change, and I have to seek a father figure elsewhere.
My mother was not also like part of my life. My mother was on drugs when she had me, and also she was very young. She was 14. So due to her being so young, you know, out in the streets, that's how I ended up being adopted by my grandparents. So my mother figure was my grandmother in that essence.
I did, I thought about having a chilly moment and just figure out who he was, because I was just like, that's 50% of my bloodline that I don't know. But that conversation didn't occur to me until like maybe 2 years ago. I was like, I'm gonna find my dad soon, hopefully.
It makes me feel like I was dealt the wrong cards in life. There are some dangerous things that I've done, dangerous situations I've put myself in. And I feel like if my father was present in my life and we had a good relationship, I feel like a lot of this stuff would not even be.
It stems from today's present. Like, you know, I'm open. I'm 38 years old. Like, you know, I can't be upset about nothing that happened from 1 to 18. I have 20 more years to figure some things out. It just stems from the fact that I guess we just don't see eye to eye on certain things, or whatever his reasoning is. I don't know. It's his reasoning, not mine. But I mean, I'm open to speak to the man if he would like to talk to me.
Honestly, it's still been a challenge now as far as dealing with just the word mother, because I felt that, one, I never had an opportunity really to get to know my mother, because not only did she have me very young and was a part of my life due to her drug habits and illness, she also died very young. She was only maybe about 41, 42. I was only, I think, 26 at the time. So I had never had the opportunity to go in a relationship with my mother. So watching my friends with their relationships with their mother, especially now, honestly, it still is a painful place for me. So even when Mother Day rolls around, like, it's tough for me to even kind of like deal with the day sometimes. The instance, okay, when I met him, I'm gonna say a handful of times, but the first time, it was my senior year of high school. I was about to, maybe days to graduation. My biological mother named Tammy, she had popped in. So she always popped in and popped out of my life due to drug addiction. So this one particular time, again, she's there. I had never asked about it. You know, I'm 17, about to be 18, had never asked about it my entire life. So I finally asked about him, and I just asked, you know, like, who's my daddy? I never had asked her that. The next day, I hear a knock at the door, and she hands me the phone, and it's him. So we had a small conversation, and he comes over. My entire life, I thought, hey, I look like my mom. Like, I know I'm definitely my mom's child, whatever. But when this man showed up at my grandfather's house and got out his truck, it was like, wow. Wow, I'm definitely a knockoff version of him. And that's crazy because I look a lot like my mother. So it's like they both have some strong ass genes, but I look like that man like a motherfucker.
The reason for me to even reach out to find my father was because I'm at a certain age now to where I just want to know the history. I want to know why. I do have questions now. I just want to bridge that gap of not knowing who you are or who he was. And so I decided to go through Ancestry DNA to reach out to him or to find something of that part of the family tree. And through a cousin on his side connected me to him. I knew who he was, I just didn't know who he was. So I was familiar with what he looked like, I was familiar with where he lived, I was familiar with his name, I just didn't know his birthday, I didn't know anything about him.
I would say that, I guess if you feel like I'm holding a grudge, I don't. I'm not even mad about you not being there, being part of my life, or whatever, because I turned out great. So the door's still open, and out of respect, honestly, like, own up to your shit. And I'm gonna say this too. I met my father only a few times in my life, and when I came into the picture, or when I was, when I came into the picture when I was born or whatever, he was getting married that year. So he had a whole life and going, so he wasn't gonna tell about the bastard child that he fathered. So own up to your shit. I don't have any resentment when it comes to him because I feel like God removes people for a reason. He removes certain people out your life. Again, my biological mother, she's on drugs. I thought about my life. What would my life be like if my grandfather, my grandparents didn't adopt me and I stayed with my mother? She could not take care of again, I'm the second child. She's, at this time, 15, 16, on drugs, running around. No, that's why Child Protective Services were called and we ended up with my grandparents. So, no, I don't have any regrets about anybody missing a part of my life because I turned out to be a great individual. So, I think their presence could have done more damage than it done more good, so.
I would just want to understand like where the disconnect is. You know what I mean? Like why he's over here and I'm over here. You know what I mean? Like I'm an awesome person, so I would just want to understand like where the disconnect is. Like, cause I mean I'm open to listen to what you have to say, but if you don't tell me what it is, I don't know. It's almost like saying that there's a problem, but nobody wants to tell you what the problem is. So he got to tell me the problem so we can know what the problem is. But it probably started before that. Like he probably didn't understand how his son was gay probably first. You know what I mean? Like the transition was probably the cherry on top of the fucking cake that put the nail in the fucking coffin. But I'm sure he just couldn't understand that. You know what I mean? Like he's kind of like a man's man. I wish we could just come to a happy medium. You know what I mean? Like we don't have to understand one another. Like I don't understand people being addicted to drugs. I don't. Like I've never been addicted to anything. You know what I mean? And I think because he was addicted to drugs, like I can't be addicted to anything. Like I can't like anything too much because I feel like it's in me to have an addictive personality, you know what I mean? So I wish we would just understand each other. Like I understand now that I'm older, like why he was so the way he was, because it was of the drugs, you know what I mean? Like, and the drugs took a hold of his brain, and so it wasn't really him. So all the things that I hated him for or resented him for, like I've forgiven him to myself because you don't have no control over your mind when you're on drugs. You know what I mean? The drugs really have control of your mind. I just wish that he would understand me and why I'm the person that I am. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think anybody chooses to be gay. I don't think anybody chooses to transition. Like, you can't help the person that is in you. You know what I mean? So I just wish that we could come to a common medium. We could agree to disagree, but you still have to have a conversation in order to agree to disagree.
If I could say anything to my dad right now, I would say that he failed me as a father. racism.
You have one unheard message. First unheard message.
Hey Mike, this is Rig, man. Why you don't call, man? What's wrong with you? Why you don't give me a call? Give me a call when you get this message.
End of message. To delete this message, press 7. Message deleted.